Hi everyone, and welcome back to part number 3 of this The World Is Yours collection. This collection, I've mentioned a couple times, was a real pain in the rear end to put together, and this was probably the worst of them all. So on the right hand side, you can see it has all these squares, and I have gone ahead and inked and cut all of my papers. It shows you at the very beginning how to cut them all at the same time, so that putting the layouts together is supposed to be a little bit easier. And then after I did that, I went ahead and inked all the edges, knowing that I was going to ink them anyway, so I just figured doing them all at once would save some time. Now I know, and I'm looking at some of the pictures because there wasn't very much to the instructions, I am cutting the corners off, or corner rounding some of the corners that they have. I'm just doing the same thing with mine. And there's a picture, again, I mentioned in the last video that I printed up a couple color photos of these layouts just to make it easier. Here's one thing that I was wrong. You were supposed to have a green piece that was slightly larger than the white piece on this center one, and I couldn't find one, but I had the wrong box sitting there. So long story short, I fixed that in the end. I did skip a little bit here because if you can see on the top of your screen, all those flowers and leaves that I stamped and fussy cut out. Now, I don't normally mind fussy cutting, but those leaves were the stems of those leaves were so thin that it was the worst fussy cutting I've done in a while. And not only that, but I've lost my fussy cutting scissors. I have some of the ones that you just squeeze, and it's kind of like the tweezers that you spring, that has the spring that you squeeze and they open. It's the same, they were the Fiskars brand, and I have no idea where they've gone. I'm so disappointed, and I just did a bunch of rearranging in my room, and so I have no idea where they could be. So hopefully I didn't throw those away, like I'm good at throwing things away. I'm kind of wondering if that didn't happen though. Anyways, I'm gluing these down like they have them in the picture. And again, I'm not measuring. I'm trying to make sure that they are lined up as best as I can have them lined up. But I'm not going to worry if they are off just a little bit. By this time, I was really just wanting to be done with this kit. I still absolutely love it. I think you will also love, if you've seen the other videos, you know how really pretty the layouts turn out. This is another one of my favorite ones that is a little bit unique from what I usually do. I am using my ruler here to make sure that so some of these white squares where my photos will go are a little bit smaller than the other ones, and so you can see here I had to pull that one up because it was smaller, and so I'm just using my ruler to kind of make sure that the ones that are larger or smaller line up with the other ones of that same size in that same row. I think I end up getting rid of my ruler here in just a moment. And then I lost my green piece of cardstock again, so luckily I had accidentally cut 2 for some reason, so I did have another one, and that one's going to be glued down on the middle section here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and continue to glue down all of the rest of these. And again, these are just my photo mats because I don't know what photos I'm going to put on these yet. I've mentioned that I'm going to Utah this summer and I might use those photos, so I very well most likely will do those. That square that's on the top right hand side with the 2 arrows and the journaling lines, the 2 arrows were part of the stamp set that came with the kit, and you could order the kit separately, but this was the one that came with all the directions and the Cricut cuts and everything for the layout. So it's just 2 stamped arrows, and then I just drew the lines in with black ink. I worried about the black ink showing up and being different from everything else being brown, but honestly you can't even tell, so luckily it turned out just fine. And then the instructions said something, I think, to cut these down. I don't think I went by the sizes. I just cut them down to whatever I wanted. And then they had these brown strips for them to go on. But I ended up cutting these a lot smaller. I don't know, again, if I cut them wrong or if they just were wrong from the sizes. So I just trimmed them up so that a little bit of that brown border would show behind them. And I'm going to pop some of those up. There's going to be a few different cluster areas on this side. side, and I really like it. I'm really glad that I took the time to fussy cut out these flowers. I also fussy cut a couple of the flowers from the pink pattern paper, or I guess it's peach, that came with the kit, but I don't end up using those. And I just kind of basically followed the directions or the way they have them on their layouts. And I am taking some and I'm putting some of the flowers down with that foam tape that's on the roll there. That's a little bit thicker than the normal foam tape that I use. So in this cluster that I'm working on here, one of the flowers is popped up with the thicker foam tape and the other one's a little bit lower, just to kind of have some more dimension to the layout. And then with all these leaves that cause me a lot of grief, I probably should have cut a lot of this out because these leaves are just, they're so tiny and fragile and they drive me kind of insane this entire page. I was so glad to be done with these. They look beautiful though, so I'm glad that I powered through it. But what I'm doing is basically the beginning of the stem, I'm gluing down with either a glue dot or the Lawn Fawn glue I used here. I won't bother using that. I think I do glue dots for the rest of them. But then the top of the leaves, I'm adding some foam tape. And on some of them, I add a little bit of the smaller foam tape on the way up, and then the top leaves I will put with the thicker foam tape. I did find that cutting that new foam tape with these little scissors didn't work very well. So I had to have both scissors out. I didn't have to, but I like to use those little scissors with little things like this. And those bigger scissors for that big roll, it's the only thing that would really cut that big roll, and it's going to take me a few times to figure that out. And I'm also trying to follow their layout, which it doesn't say to cut this part of the stem off or anything like that. It really just kind of leaves you here, add these flowers here. And luckily for me, it worked out and I had fussy cut. I think altogether I fussy cut, stamped and fussy cut 7 of those leaf stems, but you can see how very thin the stems of them are, and if I would have known which ones I could have cut apart, it probably would have made them easier, but you had to be extremely careful, and a couple of them I did rip, but it ended up working out just fine. So I had this middle section here and it has this globe sticker, so I'm going to put this globe sticker down with some of this foam tape, and I think this is where I'm starting to learn that cutting with that foam tape with these little scissors just doesn't work as well. It didn't matter for going behind here as much, but it just, for some reason, it just doesn't cut very well. So just adding a little piece of the foam behind, again, some more of those leaves and branches, and just trying to stick them down. I'm using, again, this is where I start using the glue tape, or the glue dots at the beginnings of the stems, which I consider to be the bottom of them, I guess, and then I'm gluing them down. And I'm trying to make it look really random, where some of the leaves I even use some glue dots on, and so it looks like some are really sticking up and some are just sticking up a little, and some of them have a glue dot behind them so they're flat. And then I also left parts with no adhesive behind them so that they really had even more dimension because they were sticking up even more, which they might get flattened a little bit more in the page protector, but I'm not worried about it because I like the way it looks. This double page layout is probably my second favorite layout among the two. It does have some funky sized photo mats, like the one you can see. Most of these are, I believe, 3x3, but like you can tell that one that's on the very right hand side in the middle is not 3x3. I don't know, maybe it's 2.5 by 2.5. So it's going to be interesting. I'll definitely have to print the photos to match these layouts. And on the other side, the left hand page, which you will see me start to work on in a few minutes, there's some really weird different shaped photo mats for that one, but honestly I just thought it would be fun and I went with it, and I like the layout, so I'm not going to veer off too much from that one. Now here I'm gluing these down, and I know that there is going to go a photo is going to go behind some of those leaves, so I have not taken off the backing of some of the foam tape on the left hand part of those leaves because I know that I'm going to need to push a photo underneath that, and I'm not going to try to fussy cut the photo to go around those leaves. So I just left it, and I'm also going to leave this word phrase sticker here. I think I start to glue it down and then I realize, oh yeah, it's going to need to go under above the photo. So yeah, you can see I'm taking the foam, the adhesive part off the foam, and then I'm going to remember I'm going to need to put the photo on it. So I just cut a piece of that backing from my little foam squares and put it on there, and it's not stuck down at all now, and so it will get moved around a little bit. But oh, you know, I don't know if I made sure it was straight for the very end photo, but either way, that's a photo's going to go under there, so I didn't glue that down yet. This page definitely went a lot faster in the video, sped up, than it did in real life, because in real life it took me forever. But that's okay. This side of the layout I really like. This is, again, it's kind of funky sized pictures, but I'm going to make them work. I'm going to mess up a little bit here, you will see in the beginning. I know I've mentioned in the other videos that the instructions were basically not there for these pages, but so what I'm doing here is I'm gluing these, but I'm going to get them all glued down, and luckily I peel them up easily enough. When I went to glue down this second piece is when I noticed that the main larger part of the triangle of these brown ones is supposed to go on the inside of the layout instead of on the outside of the layout like I had it originally. And so luckily all that's going to be covered back up, so I don't need to worry about any of it being ripped or anything like that. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it because I know that the middle of the layout here is going to be covered up with something else. So I'm just making sure that it goes all the way off the end of the layout and that it goes mostly to the middle of the layout so that there's any overlap there. And that map one I just moved over a little bit because I wanted to make sure that I had something I liked in the map on there, but in the long run it doesn't really matter anyway. So I'm gluing down the green ones, and yes, it only calls for one gray square on the left hand side, and I think that's because this is the left hand page, so to kind of give it a little bit of separation from the right hand side being in the middle of a double page, they added that gray square. And honestly, I might even end up taking these two layouts and putting them together, but they could be about two different things, if that makes any sense. So the photos on this layout, I don't feel like they have to match the other side, even though they were meant to go together. So if you wanted to use these as two separate single-sided single page layouts, it would work just fine with these pages. You could probably do that with all the other pages too, but I know for sure that this one would look just fine. So it had this striped paper, and then it also had these pink papers that, okay, sorry, peach, I guess it's called peach. It had these peach papers to go in the middle, and it had some white photo mats for those. And that's where one of the photo mats, I can't remember the size of most of them, but I do remember that one of them was just a really weird size. Oh, and then I realized that there was a saying on there, so I'm going to, I think I ended up leaving this on here so that you guys could see the stamping and fussy cutting out of a lot of these. I didn't take much time to make sure there was one little piece of hair or something that got on the stamp, so I'm just using a scrap and stamping this word out, and I'm using chocolate ink instead of the color that they have. It's close enough to the brown that it doesn't matter, and so it works just fine. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fussy cut that out, but that one's pretty easy because it's just a banner, so that's why I left this part of the video in. I'm usually not very crazy about those stamps that are solid with the words that are not there, so the words don't stamp but the solid part around them does. I'm usually not too crazy about that because I just don't like the way it looks. So I've actually already gone through this stamp set, and any of these stamps that are left over that I don't want, I have put in the giveaway box for this upcoming weekend. I'm hoping to get these videos up this week. So here is the peach paper that I cut down, and apparently the first one that I cut down I couldn't even find. First of all, I could find this small one, but it was the same width as the photos, so I don't know how it got cut wrong. I'm not even worried about it. Luckily, I started to panic for a second there, but luckily I had another piece of it or a scrap of it that ended up working out for this layout. I'm really happy because I would have had to have waited to order a new piece if I hadn't. So What I like is, if you'll see here, instead of making this the full 12 inches, they break it apart, and so, which is why one of the photo mats that I'm gluing down here, I think, is kind of a weird size. But it really adds some interest. I like how the triangle shapes on the side really point into the middle where it's all broken up there, which is where a cluster and kind of basically the title is going to go. So you can see this one will pair up really nicely with the other page that I just did, but at the same time, this could be its own page all on its own and still turn out really good. So these stickers, these circle stickers, I noticed after I had glued everything down, they had stuck behind the beach cardstock, but not the striped one. So I ended up just chopping a little off and calling it good and just tucking a little bit behind that peach cardstock, and that worked out just fine. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop this circle up with some of the foam tape just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension. I know I'm going to be popping some things up in those other circles, so I didn't worry about those just yet. I just glued those flat. Now I'm just adding again some more of this foam tape to the top of the leaves, and then I'm going to play around with how they go. They have the leaves coming out of all different places, and again I'm just using the glue dot for the bottom part, which I found to be much easier than using that Lawn Fawn glue, especially when you tuck it in. You can't really push it down with anything, and I didn't want the stems to stick up like the leaves were. Sorry about that. I had to answer the phone really quick. So again, you can see I'm just taking a little glue dot, and when I want to take a glue dot and add it behind something small like that, I will use my little quick picks tool or whatever that's called, and I will lift the glue dot off of the piece of paper that it comes on with the end of that tool, and I will put it in the place, and that kind of helps if you need to tuck it underneath something. So I'm looking here, and I realized that behind the sticker of the suitcases is some of this thread, twine, wire stuff. So I'm going to try to glue some of this down. I think I might have added a glue dot to it, and then I kind of held some of it in place and then just stuck it down with this sticker. These stickers are really strong stickers. I would be amazed if any of these stickers came undone, because they really stick. And when I was doing this, it made me realize that I was supposed to put some of the twine or ribbon, whatever wire this is, behind this globe also. And I know that I didn't have to 100% follow the layout, but that's part of what I liked about this layout, was this thread, because I mentioned that I've always wanted to do this and I've seen other people do it. So I went ahead and I just lifted up the globe. Luckily it was on some foam tape, and that foam tape, until it's really stuck down, seems to stick down fairly well. So I went ahead and went back to the first page and I added it on there, and it worked out well. So I'm gluing this leaf, this vine, this goes across here, and so I have that little cluster with the suitcase, and again you could see me there picking off a glue dot with that little quick picks tool and tucking it behind one of the leaves. And now this is that little phrase saying that I stamped out a little while ago, and I'm going to use some foam tape to glue it down so that it is the same height as the circle. I think it tucks behind the circle, maybe just a hair, either that or behind the suitcases. I can't remember. It can't tuck in very far behind because I cut it to be, oh, maybe that's what it is that a couple of these flowers go here, and so it's going to lightly tuck behind some of these flowers. And again, I'm going to take some of these flowers, and some of them I'm going to use the thicker foam tape with, and some of them I'm going to use the little bit thinner of a foam tape with. So I'm just trying to mix and match all of that. And I'm just adding in a few leaves here. I think I ended up with, I don't want to say a full leaf set left over, but I did fussy cut too many, but that's okay, because I knew I'd rather fussy cut too many than to have to go back and sit there and stop doing the layout and fussy cut out some more. So, and I really like the way that those leaves look on the layout. You know, they might have been a pain in the butt to fussy cut out, but they really are looking beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and still add in, like I said, I could have probably cut some of this out, but that's okay. It just gives me time to chat with all of you. And this is our last week of school for us. We get out on the 14th, and I am very much looking forward to that. I'm hoping to have all of these videos up this week as something kind of a little bit different, and then my monthly celebration video will be up Saturday. So both of these clusters, both of the clusters here by the circle will have, well, let me say all of that again. Both of these circles will have a cluster around them. I'm going to play around, I think, with those two flowers just a little bit, because this heart is also going to go there, and the way that I had the flowers that I have them now, they don't stick down, or the heart doesn't kind of go in between them as well. I didn't really like that, so I'm just going to move them around just a tiny bit. And now I've done those two clusters, and I just have to work on the cluster that's going to go on the top left circle. And so again, I'm just adding different sizes of this foam adhesive to the back of some of the leaves, and then some of the leaves I'm also leaving flat. And I am in love with these layouts. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these layouts. I'm not sure if this kit is available anymore. I'm sure that there's some close to my heart consultants out there that still have some. But they're just gorgeous. Great for travel. They could be used for a lot of different things if you didn't want to use them for travel. And there's enough left over that I'm going to use them for a daily life spread as well. And I'm not even going to worry about it being a travel theme. The reason I pulled this flower up here is because some of those flowers, I don't know if you can tell, some of them are lighter pink and some are a darker pink. And I had the same color pink in this cluster together, and so I wanted each cluster to have the two different colors of pink. So I just had to take that one up, but it was no big deal. It went up pretty quickly. Luckily for you guys, this is all going a lot faster than it was for me, and it wasn't a pain in the butt to do these videos as much. I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to do these videos because these layouts were so frustrating, but it ended up working out great. So all I have left really to do, I think, here is to add these sequins that came with the kit onto the clusters, and I believe I'm adding 3 in each cluster. And then here is a couple of close-up video pictures for you, and you can see the thread behind there. I just really like the look that it gives, and there it's from this side, and then the last photo is the 2 pages together, where you can tell it could go together as one or as separate. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys for part number 4.